Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it. Do me a favor while you're here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything we have going right here at On Deck, and of course, everything that the Atlanta Braves are up to. Of course, today, though, not exactly talking about the Atlanta Braves, maybe a little bit partially, but today we are focusing on the breaking news tonight that Jacob deGrom will be signing a 5-year deal for $185 million to the Texas Rangers. Again, a very big deal. This is one that we knew was coming at some point, whether it be that deGrom was going to stay in New York or whether it be that he was going to come to Atlanta or somewhere else. It will be the Texas Rangers. Now, the Rangers, without a doubt, we can talk about Jacob deGrom, but I think we should start by talking about the Rangers because the Rangers have been busy this offseason. Just in the past 5 weeks, they signed a brand new manager, 3-time World Series winning manager, Bruce Bochy, to a new deal. Brought him out of retirement, by the way. Signed pitching coach Mike Maddux, of course, the brother of Greg Maddux. He has been involved with the Ranger organization before, as recent as 2016, but a very well-known pitching coach with a lot of success. And also, don't overlook this senior advisor, Dayton Moore. Of course, Dayton Moore got his start with the Braves, of all teams, under John Sherholtz. He essentially built the Royals that would go on to win in 2014, go on to win the World Series in 2014. So I like what they're doing. They started with the coaching core, and of course, you know, the administration, and I thought that was brilliant by the Texas Rangers. I think they're doing the right things. But of course, most notably this offseason, today they signed Jacob deGrom. So again, I like what they're doing. They started with the administration. I think that's the way to handle this. And you know what? I think that they're not done, first of all. We're going to get into that in just a second. But you look at their team. They got a lot of exciting players already before deGrom. They got Simeon and Seager up the middle. They got Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, who's coming off a Silver Slugger year. They have a lot of pieces. Maybe they could improve a little bit in the outfield. They could definitely improve in the pitching department for sure. One of their biggest up-and-coming prospects is Luis Angel Acuna, who is, of course, the brother of Ronald Acuna Jr. So a lot to look forward to if you're a Rangers fan. But I would say this. What is the appeal to Jacob deGrom? A lot of people are going to ask that. What is the appeal? $185 million for 5 years. It's $37 a year, by the way, for a guy who last year had a above 3 ERA, a 5-4 win-loss record, 102 strikeouts, and 64 innings pitched. Now, look, I think we're all aware that Jacob deGrom was not 100% healthy last year. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. He was not healthy. That being said, we all know what he can do when he is healthy. He is elite. The other aspect of this, Bruce Bochy said in his introductory press conference, one of my favorite quotes by him in that press conference, "I would not be here if I didn't want to help bring a championship here to Texas. And I know we have some work to do, but I can tell you I'm all in." I guarantee you Jacob deGrom is all in as well. I've seen some posts today from Braves fans saying that, you know, Jacob deGrom decided to go for the money and not the ring. I disagree. I think Texas is trying to be a contender here sooner rather than later. That's why I don't think they're done. I expect Texas to make a few more big splashes in the free agency market, maybe even in the trade market. Now, that all being said, I like what they're doing. I think it's great. Now, there is definitely some concern with deGrom on my part. You know, I've talked about this before when Braves fans would pitch him to me. You know, could we go get deGrom? I like deGrom. I again think he is a Hall of Fame talent. The thing that concerns me about deGrom is his injury proneness. He's very injury prone. Every year, you know, it seems, at least for the past couple, he's been a non-factor come, you know, the end of the season or a lot of the time during the season. He hasn't been quite what I needed him to be, and I didn't know that I wanted to pay him, if I'm Atlanta, $185 million, you know, for 5 years to come there. I don't know if I wanted to dish out that money. I appreciate that, you know, we have a general manager that can, you know, tone it down and not go for the big move. Alex Anthopoulos, of course, winning Baseball America's Executive of the Year, and he can win Executive of the Year every year as far as I'm concerned, the job he's done in Atlanta so far. Now, again, that being said, you know, Jacob deGrom is off the board for Atlanta now. To switch gears here for just a second, he is off the board. Of course, there are other major starting pitching names, the biggest one being Justin Verlander. Carlos Rodon is still out there. There's some names out there, and I think the Braves still have a chance to go out there and get some pitching. But I also think that the Braves realize that they have a lot of young arms that can compete. Kyle Muller, Bryce Elder, Mike Soroka. There's a lot of guys there. Huascar Ynoa. There's tons of guys there that can compete for that fifth spot. We're going to have to see how it goes. But I think that will, it could be that the Braves just go get a starting pitcher and call it a day. We'll have to wait and see. That is kind of what the offseason is about, waiting and seeing, right? That is really all we can do. I've waited for an opportunity to talk to you guys. I'm going to be busy tomorrow, so I didn't want to let tonight slip past. deGrom is a big deal. The fact that he is a chip off the board is a big deal for the Braves. The fact that he's going to the Rangers is, of course, a big deal for the Rangers. But the fact that he's not going to the New York Mets is the biggest deal. The fact that we're not going to have to see this guy near as much is a big deal. The Mets are losing one of their biggest pieces. Of course, they have Scherzer, at least for another year, maybe two. Not exactly sure there. They still have Bassett. They have some arms, but I think that they just took a major hit. Now, if you remember, they did sign Edwin Diaz to a big-time deal. Maybe they knew that deGrom was not attainable. They knew they wanted to keep Edwin Diaz. So I look at that as, more so trying to retain some continuity. But I'm curious to see what the Braves are going to do. Dansby Swanson seems to be a cold road right now. It does not seem like there's been any kind of movement there. So it's something to keep an eye on. We're, of course, going to monitor that. Winter meetings heats up this upcoming week. December 7th is when that starts. And I believe that's, 5 days from now? So we're going to keep an eye on that as well. So make sure to stay tuned here at On Deck. Of course, hit the bell, all that stuff so you can stay updated. Anytime we see something, we're going to go live as quick as we can. Tonight, wanted to get here as quick as I could just to talk about this because this is a big deal. deGrom going to the Rangers. A lot of people are writing the Rangers off. Do not do it. They are investing in their future. The fact that they got deGrom for 5 years should tell you something. The fact that they went and got a former World Series winning manager 3 times out of retirement tells you that they're up to something. And the fact that they're, again, investing in administration, they are investing in the future. And they do have a future. I think that they have a lot of time to grow what they have, but they have stars that can play today as well. I mentioned a few of them. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe at first base. What they don't have, and this is what intrigues me, what they don't have, again, I mentioned outfield and pitching. The one that I left out is catching. Go look at their roster. They don't exactly have all-stars there. I believe the Braves do. I look at Travis d'Arnaud, and I look at William Contreras, and I also look at Manny Pena. Manny Pena was expected to be the backup catcher this year over William Contreras. Now, of course, with the year that Contreras had, I think we're all glad that it turned out the way it did. However, I still look at this situation and I say, well, the Braves can't afford to lose a catcher. I would like to not lose William Contreras. Let me say that. However, let me pitch this idea to you, Braves fans, if you're out there. What would you do if you could unload Marcell Ozuna and trade William Contreras to the Rangers? Because they got the money to spend. They're showing it right now. What if they took a risk on Ozuna and unloaded the contract, but you had to give up William Contreras? Would you do it? Just something to think about, because that is the way that would happen. If it were to happen, that is the way it would happen. And they could use an improvement at catching, no doubt. I think Contreras, the real interest with Contreras is the bat, to tell you the truth. I think that's the real interest there. Because, look, for the Braves, we have offense. The offense is done and handled. Catching, we're pretty much good at. We have 3 catchers. A lot of depth there that a lot of teams do not have. But I also don't necessarily believe that the Braves are ready to get rid of William Contreras. So we'll see how that plays out, of course. And, of course, the biggest news for the Braves is Dansby Swanson. When is that going to be settled? We'll have to keep it and play it by ear. So, of course, make sure to like the bell, or like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. We're going to get into your comments now. I'm sure you guys have a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of times since I have seen you. And we're going to make sure that we talk to you guys as well. We're not going to be here too long tonight. I know it's late. Sorry. Wanted to get in and talk about deGrom going to Texas because I think it's a very big deal. Please do me a favor and like the video, though. It really does help out the channel. Yasuki Knight brings in the first comment, and it's a good one. Glad deGrom is not in the National League East anymore. I completely agree and concur. I'm glad we're not going to have to face him near as much. Austin Nocho, you think the winter meeting's happening? The Braves have a shortstop within a week or two. I think the Dansby stuff is going to get settled soon. I really do. He's got a wedding coming up, if I'm not mistaken. I would think that Dansby would want to have it settled prior to that. Now, that being said, if it's not settled at winter meetings, it'll be any minute. I don't think the Braves are going to sit on their thumbs here. I think they're going to be active. I think they're going to be active in the shortstop conversations. I look at Xander Bogaerts. I look at Carlos Correa, Trey Turner. There's a lot of guys there that could be moving to Atlanta if Swanson is a no-go. I would really like Swanson to go ahead and re-sign. I think that is in his best interest. And, of course, I can do any video talking about anything, and this is going to come up. But I think the shortstop position has got to be handled, for sure. Let's see. Blake Newsom says, I hope that the Braves sign Verlander to a Scherzer-type deal because they'll be jello by 2024. This isn't the 2012 Tigers. Cohen money can't fix everything. I agree. Now, I will tell you this. I think Verlander surprised a lot of people this year, for sure. I think that, I think Verlander, was he not the comeback player of the year this year? I don't know how long he's going to go. We've seen pitchers go longer than many give him credit for. The only person that you can really compare Verlander to at this point, as old as he is Nolan Ryan. Now, he doesn't have near the numbers that Nolan Ryan does. Of course, those are almost untouchable. But he's the only one I can really compare him to, being at his age and having the success that he's having. So that being said, he could be done by 2024. I don't know. But he's doing pretty good right now. I would take a chance on Verlander for the right deal. I just don't think he's in the right ballpark for us at the moment. Let's see. Max Cruz, does deGrom win a ring in the next 5 years? That's a good question. It all depends on what, Mike Maddux, Bruce Bochy, what that administration is able to do. I think they're doing the right things. I think they're laying the right floor plan for this. But it's going to take some building. It's going to take some time. They are trying to buy themselves into being a contender right now. If they do it the right way, they could do it this year. But I also look at it and I see a lot of mistakes that a lot of teams have made before. So, we'll see. Let me rephrase that. A lot of opportunities for mistakes that I've seen other teams make before. Remember the Phillies? Now, again, they were in a World Series this year. But the way the Phillies were built, they weren't built to last. Right? Remember, they invested in Harper. They invested in Arrieta. This is back 3-4 years ago now. They reframed, and they've started focusing on their young talent. And Reese Hoskins, Alec Boehm came out of nowhere this year. But the way they were built originally is kind of how I'm seeing this team built. I do think it can succeed. I do think that it can, it can turn around and be a contender this year. I don't know that it's built to last. A lot of these guys are older. They're getting paid a lot of money. I don't know how it's going to age. Look at the Seager deal. Look at the Simeon deal. They're both getting paid pretty good. Adolis Garcia, is not quite making that money, but again, they're paying deGrom now. They're probably going to make some more splashes. They don't have a complete team. For them to be spending this kind of money, they do not have a complete team yet. Another reason I think they're going to go out and get somebody. I think they at least need to add a Chris Bassett type to tail that rotation as well. To improve it. I also think that they really need to invest in some more power bats in the outfield. And so that'll be interesting. We'll see how the younger prospects come up. If they come up, and are instant performers, like for the Braves, we saw Michael Harris this year, Spencer Strider. If those guys come up and they're able to perform, then I think you could have something like that. Look, I also look at what Bruce Bochy said. And I value that because he came out of retirement because he believes that the Texas Rangers are building themselves towards a championship. We'll see how that goes. That's really all we can do. I don't believe Bruce Bochy comes out of retirement, a Hall of Fame career, and joins a club that he doesn't believe in. And I think for a long time the Rangers have been that club where, we're just going to have this season. We're going to have this season. We're going to make money. We're going to move on. No, I think they're here to contend, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. We have Super Chats back-to-back. Johnny T first. Thank you for that. Remember, Super Chats gives you the opportunity to jump in line on the chat. Don't know how long we're going tonight, so Super Chats really do benefit your chances in getting your question read, but also helps the channel. So thank you, Johnny T and Maverick. I'll get to you in just a second. Johnny T says, the only reason I don't see Contreras going is only because our other two catchers are older and losing both top prospect catchers in back-to-back years. Oh, and he also says, like the Bell. Good point. I don't disagree with you. I had this conversation with my dad earlier. Actually, we were in the car talking about this. Blake Newsome says exactly what I was about to say. Pena and Travis are both free agents after 2023, so I get that. Contreras is under control for longer, and that's exactly why he has value, right? So if this is just me pitching it, I don't think the Braves would trade Contreras. In fact, Rosenthal dropped something the other day in The Athletic saying that the Braves were shopping from a catching prospect from the A's. I believe Sam, if I'm not, no, I don't know his name, but they were shopping for a prospect from the A's catching to add even more depth. I read that, and I don't think the Braves are trying to add more depth necessarily. I think they're trying to replace somebody in the catching core already. Maybe that's Manny Pena. I don't think it's d'Arnaud. It can't be d'Arnaud. I think they're going to probably try to sign d'Arnaud to an extension. I'd be surprised if they didn't. That being said, with Contreras, there is real value in Contreras. Not exactly behind the plate. Though there have been major improvements this year, no doubt about it, behind the plate, his value is in the batter's box. I mean, you look at what he can do. He could be a DH on any team. He was the DH in the All-Star game, and I know that's because Harper was hurt. But he was still the DH in the All-Star game. The dude can perform. So I look at it, and I see him as a trade piece, potentially. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I do think it is potentially a trade piece. He also hits arbitration next year. That's something to keep an eye on. These guys aren't going to be cheap forever, and we're eventually going to have to pay these guys. I think d'Arnaud is good enough that you could keep him right around where you have him and him be content where he's at because the team is winning. That being said, Manny Pena is potentially going to be the breakout star this year, and I only say that because he didn't play last year. He was expected to take the spot over Contreras until he got hurt early on in the year, and we never really saw him. I expect him to come out, on a contract year and try to perform here, and I would be surprised. I also think that the Braves really look at their catching and say, well, we have a lot of depth there, at least right now, and it's a rare commodity to have depth at catching in this day and age. There's not a lot of good catchers out there. Certainly not a lot of good catchers that can hit. d'Arnaud is one. Contreras is one. Manny Pena, if he can hit, successfully, he could be one. And if it's me personally, I would much rather have d'Arnaud and Contreras on any day of the week. Make no mistake about it. However, I'm looking at the rest of the team and I go, well, we need a left fielder, a legit left fielder. Hey, we need to unload Ozuna, right? And I also look at it and say, hey, we probably need to free up some money if we want to get Dansby or some other top-name shortstop to play for us. That's where I really think the debate is. How replaceable is somebody, right? So, again, we'll see how it goes. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I was just sort of trying to pitch the idea there, Johnny T. Appreciate you super chatting for sure, and please make sure to like the bell like he said. I really do appreciate it. Maverick says, if AA can get rid of Ozuna and Pena and go sign Sean Murphy, that's the name I was looking for, thank you, and then sign Dansby and bring back Duvall and Grossman to platoon left field and DH. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like. The getting rid of Ozuna part, I think we can all attest. I'm good for that. Pena, I'm okay with that. Again, there's no attachment there. I think he holds value at catching. I think he potentially holds more value right now than he would later on in the season. And what I mean by that is everybody's looking for catching depth right now. We don't know what Manny Pena is going to be. We assume he's going to be the Manny Pena before he got hurt. I assume that, to be frank with you. However, we don't really know. If he was to have a major fall off this season, his value tumbles for the Braves. He also has a year of control. You can trade him right now. So I don't mind losing Pena. So Ozuna, Pena, I'm good with. And go sign Sean Murphy, I'd be okay with that. If you could get him for cheap, or if you could get him in a trade for cheap, I'm not exactly sure. I think he's coming from, I don't know. Anyway, if you can get him for the right deal, is essentially what I'm saying. Getting Dansby back would be ideal, and bringing back Duvall and Grossman to platoon left field and DH. I like Duvall. I like Grossman. I don't know if I want them to platoon. I would really prefer an everyday left fielder. I think Grossman was really good this year. I think the Braves are kind of stuck with Rosario right now. As much as we all like Rosario for what he gave to the 2021 team, there's really no upside right now to Rosario in terms of a trade deal. I think they're kind of stuck with him, right? So I look at it. He's a decent left field bat. He's a decent left-handed bat. You can plug him in the lineup any day you need. I think he's good enough to be off the bench and to platoon, kind of like you said. I would rather you bring back Duvall and let Eddie pitch in. I don't dislike the Grossman idea though, but I also look at what Grossman did at the tail end of the season, and I think Grossman might be trying to get paid as well. So it's all about what's the right deal. Nothing you said really turns me off, but I would prefer the Braves spend the money and go out and get a legit left fielder. I think there's enough out there, and I don't have a name for you. I wish I did, but I think they should go out and try to get somebody that's going to play every day. Duvall, well loved in Atlanta for the right reasons. We all know that. Hasn't really been fully attached to the Braves. I mean, the Braves didn't re-sign him at the beginning of 2021, came back, became a World Series star. In 2022, they re-signed. Didn't exactly have the start to the season that he wanted. Eventually kind of found it, but there's really not a ton of attachment there with Duvall. Not like a lot of other players on the team. That being said, I'd love to have him back. We'll see. Again, we'll have to see how that goes. In terms of Grossman, if we can get him back for the right price, I would love to have him back. I think he plays the game the right way. I think he hits the ball well. I think he fields well. And I think he's a good presence on the team from what we can tell. But that's kind of how I view it. Thank you for the super chat. So again, if you want, you get your question read immediately. Super chats are the way to go. Thank you to Johnny T. And of course, thank you to Maverick as well. Really appreciate that. Maverick always does a good job of keeping me updated. If I don't know about something, Maverick is going to tell me, and I do appreciate that. Thank you guys for tuning in also, by the way. Really do appreciate that. Remember to like the video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And, of course, like the bell. I keep messing up. Hit the bell for notifications so you know when we go live next time. Let's see. Let's see. David Navarro, if Texas does not sign Senga, they will sign Waka. See, that's the kind of pitcher I'm talking about. They got to get somebody to fill out this rotation. I look at Waka, and I think that's a real possibility. I look at Rodon, and I think that's a real possibility. We'll see. We will have to see. Bassett, like Blake Newsome said, is still a free agent. That is another arm that, the other thing about deGrom is he can recruit. If he can recruit the arms he wants, if he can recruit a Chris Bassett, that would be interesting for Texas. We'll have to wait and see on that for sure. Let's see. Matthew tunes in. He says, Tyler, what would you think about the Braves trading Ozuna, Rosario, and Pena to get the last year of Miguel Cabrera? It would get the Braves out of $19 million in 2024 for Ozuna since Miggy is a pending free agent. Miggy will be a free agent after this year. Now, look, personally, on a personal note, I would love to have Miguel Cabrera on the Braves. I've met Miguel Cabrera. He's very nice as advertised. I have a signed jersey I'm looking at right there. I have a signed helmet in the other room. I love Miguel Cabrera. That being said, Miguel Cabrera is not coming to the Atlanta Braves. He's not. He is going to finish his career out in Detroit, and rightfully so. I don't see Detroit doing that. I don't see Detroit pulling a Los Angeles Angels, which was trash, by the way, what they did with Pujols last year, or the year before, I guess. I think they're going to let him play his last season. I'm sure of it, in fact. The love that they have for him, the love that he has for that city, they're going to build a statue of him one day. They're not going to trade him in his final season. Unless they just got some outlandish offer. I don't think so. And I don't, frankly, Matthew, I don't think Ozuna, Rosario, and Pena is exactly the offer they'd be looking for. I think it'd be more of a Michael Harris, Vaughn Grissom, and I don't know, Matt Olson to get them to do that. Like it would take something that was just so unforeseen. I think the Detroit Tigers organization is a little bit more by the book, and I don't think they would do that. Let's see. David Navarro, Jonah Heim will have a better next year. With Garver being healthy, they can switch between catcher DH and hopefully prevent a decline in offensive numbers in the second half. Yeah, that would be interesting. I definitely think, when I look at the Rangers, I think they have a lot of potential, for sure. I think they can prevent the decline, but I also look at what the Braves have. I look at what Contreras is. He's younger. And I think that if he pitched in there, it would be interesting. And it's really just if I'm more looking at this from the Brave side of things. If you can trade Contreras and Ozuna and unload Ozuna for cash and add catching depth to, and for the Rangers, they could cut Ozuna and just pay him off. But if you could cut Ozuna and then keep Contreras for catching depth and then make one of those guys your DH, or even make Contreras your DH, I think that would help in a lot of ways. So it'd be interesting. Austin Nocho says, do you think the reason that Judge has still not taken the huge offer he got is because he is hoping for a deal from San Fran? So if the deal that you're talking about is the deal that I saw rumored earlier, I'm not sure it's true. But I also think that Judge is probably, let me think. Judge is probably waiting on every offer he can get. We haven't even hit winter meetings yet. And you're talking about literally the biggest name in the free agent market outside of maybe Jacob deGrom. He's at least the biggest name turned down, or he's the biggest name outside in the offensive side of things, right? Aaron Judge apparently turned down 8 years, $300 million. Yeah, that's a huge deal. But you're talking about, Juan Soto got offered, $500 a few years ago? So, I mean, they get bigger every year. Aaron Judge just hit 62 homers. $300 million to Aaron Judge, even if it's only for 8 years, and it's a great deal. I want to wait and hear other offers if I'm Judge. I'm just going to be real with you. If I'm leaving New York anyway, if I've made that decision, I want to hear all the offers, whether that's from San Fran, whether it's from Chicago, Atlanta, whatever it is. If I'm Judge, I want to hear them all, and I want to know where I'm going to fit in best. I want to know who's going to pay me the most. That's if I'm Judge. I'm not Judge. I don't know what's in Judge's heart. He might want to be in San Fran. I don't know. Of course, Jock Peterson seems to want him there. We're going to, again, have to wait and see. But I would be interested to see how it goes for sure. I mean, I saw somebody made something earlier. This is what I was talking about, that Baltimore had made him some kind of outrageous deal. I just want to make sure that's not what you were talking about. I assume you're talking about the 8-year $300. I think there's truth to that, and it doesn't surprise me that it turned it down. I think he's going to take a huge deal to get Aaron Judge this year. I'd be surprised if it took less than $400. And that might be me having a hot take moment, but I would be very surprised. You're talking about a guy who hit more homers than anybody since the steroid era. I would be surprised if it didn't take more than $400 to take him home. Matthew says trading Ozuna for Miggy would definitely make the Braves better in 2024. Even if we release Miggy, it saves the Braves $19 million in 2024 and frees up roster spots for 2023 if we get rid of Rosario and Pena too. Sure, but that's only for the Braves side of things. Again, I don't see the Tigers making that deal, and that's really how I have to look at it. I have to try to look at it from both sides. If I'm the Tigers, I want to get as many jersey sales as I can get for Miguel Cabrera in his last season. I want to get as many ticket sales as I can get for Miguel Cabrera in his last season. I want to sell that. Think about all the, for us, right? Think about Chipper in his last season. Think about all the marketing behind Chipper, right? Thanks, Chipper. All the speeches, just one thing after another, right? His last playoff game. Those were full houses, right? Because it was Chipper's last whatever. There's going to be very similar things for Miguel Cabrera this year. And I think Miguel Cabrera is similar to Albert Pujols in so many different ways, but he's going to be different in the fact that he's going to get that farewell that Albert Pujols missed out on. Unfairly, I might add. He's going to get that farewell. And you're talking about a guy who hit 3,000 hits. The Tigers are going to want to capitalize on the financial benefits of that, but also they're not going to run him off like that. It would ruin team chemistry. It would ruin so many different things. And they're not going to be able to bring anybody in at that point. They're not in a spot where they're going to win anyway. They want to capitalize on the money they can make, frankly, off of Miguel Cabrera's name. That's how I look at it. Again, they're not in a spot where they're going to win anyway. They're pretty much a last place team. If they were in another division, they probably would be. So I look at it and I say, well, we might as well let Miguel Cabrera go, capitalize on the benefit of selling his jerseys, selling the tickets, and let him walk into the sunset. He's already announced that he's leaving anyway. I would be so surprised if that happened. I would be more than above surprised. Joe Reese says Swanson is playing the same game Freeman did. Here we go. With the same agent. He'll find himself elsewhere next year. If so, sign Trey Turner. I'm right there with you on the Trey Turner situation. I would be perfectly okay if Trey Turner signed to the Braves tomorrow. I would understand it. I would I think we would all move on with it and have to go with it. As much as Dansby has meant to the organization these past few years, I think that we all understand where the Braves' heads are. They are in a competitive field. And if Dansby is also making it much more clear that he is willing to walk than Freeman did. Because it wouldn't surprise me if Dansby went off and signed somewhere tomorrow. I mean, it just wouldn't. Freeman was never really like that. You always felt like Freeman wanted to be in Atlanta. I haven't always felt that with Dansby right now, based on what we've seen. Obviously, the rumors of him, I guess it's true. He unfollowed the Braves on Twitter or Instagram or whatever the case may be. Look, it's very high school to me, to tell you the truth. But I look at it and I say, well, if he doesn't want to be in Atlanta, okay. But, we'll see how it goes. And I think both sides are trying to call their bluffs. It's whatever happens behind closed doors. I don't know. To tell you the truth, I don't much care. I think ultimately it comes down to whatever Dansby really wants to do and what money he's willing to take. And if that's elsewhere, then he's well done his right. It wouldn't surprise me if he ended up elsewhere. It really wouldn't. Not as much as Freeman's situation surprised me. That one, I think, surprised everybody, including the Braves in a lot of ways. Of course, the Braves had to make their own decisions in that as well. So we'll, again, have to see what happens. We'll have to see. A lot of you guys tuning in tonight. Appreciate it. Make sure to, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay updated with everything going on right here at On Deck, across Major League Baseball, and, of course, with the Atlanta Braves. Let's see. Oren Griswold says, I personally think that deGrom leaving will lead to a domino effect with other Mets players checking on Nimmo and Conforto. I don't disagree with that. Conforto has never really signed. He's still a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Nimmo's interesting. If I'm on the Mets right now, unless my name is Edwin Diaz, which, by the way, is the next Bobby Bonilla, I'm with you. I'm looking at exiting stage left if I want to win. And I mean this with all due respect to the Mets. They still have a very good team. But with deGrom leaving and Scherzer aging and, not being quite... I mean, we saw the collapse at the end of the season. I look at it and I say, yeah, look, the lineup is still there. Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor. There's a lot of guys still there. But like you said, Nimmo, Conforto, I'm intrigued by that as well. We're, of course, keeping an eye on that. Let's see. Blake Newsom brings up a good point. He says Sean Murphy is 28 years old. Travis d'Arnaud is 33. He says, I love Travis, but if we can make a deal to get Murphy, that would be a great deal for both sides. Yeah. But again, I don't know that you can get Sean Murphy to, how do I put this? There's a lot of times where you can get players to stay on your team and that can still perform. And I think d'Arnaud is one of those players. d'Arnaud has never tried to get as much money as he's worth. His last contract, I think, was a very fair contract. I think his next one will probably be a very fair contract. And I also look at what the Braves just do with Charlie Morton, which raised a lot of eyebrows. I see a very similar thing happening with d'Arnaud. You're talking about the guy who caught every game of the postseason in the World Series championship year. You're talking about a guy who has led the pitching staff in more ways than one. And when you look at young Contreras, who has made major improvements, that's not because Contreras just improved. That's because he had someone to learn from. And I think that's still the case. So personally for me, I'm good with sticking with Tyler. Travis. I'm sorry, guys. I am tired. Matthew says, Tyler, I have heard that if the Braves don't re-sign Swanson, they will not pay more to get another shortstop like Bogarts, Correa, or Turner. Do you think that's true? I do not. I think they're definitely in the in the shortstop sweepstakes, if you want to call them that, which I will call them that. That being said, I again look at what I look at what the what the Braves have said. They said that they wanted to have a top 5 payroll. If that's the case, they're going to have to show it. But there's no reason for me to think otherwise at this moment. Terry McGuirk came out and said we want to have a top 5 payroll. I think they're going to spend the money on shortstop, maybe pitching. If they don't get Dansby, they got to respond in some form or fashion. And I would just be surprised. No offense to Vaughn Grissom, I would just be surprised if the job was left for Vaughn Grissom. I think they're going to go out and get somebody. Now, that being said, it may not be Correa, it may not be Turner, and it may not be Bogarts. Those are the names that are, of course, going around the Twitter. But I think ultimately they're going to go out and get somebody that can fill the job, or at least fill it, completely. And again, all due respect to Vaughn Grissom, Vaughn is doing something that is not common. He's coming out of Double-A, and he's really not. I don't know that he's had the time in the minors to develop. We saw that dip in performance towards the end of the year, and it's nothing against Vaughn. I think Vaughn's a great player. I think he's had a great start in his career, but I don't think he's necessarily Michael Harris, right? And I mean that with all due respect. I love what we saw from him this year. I think the guy has tons of potential. Michael Harris, I think, is here and is going to stay. I don't know that Vaughn Grissom is there and ready to stay. I don't. I would not be surprised if he started the year in the minors. And I mean that with all due respect. He had a great year and really came up hitting well. But you're talking about going from Double-A. I mean, the guy's very young, and he's facing major league pitching. And I think at some point he's going to be overwhelmed. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I could be wrong here. I've seen the rumors where Wash is working with Vaughn or whatever the case may be. I think that's maybe mostly PR for the Braves. I think that's, again, calling Dansby's bluff in a way. And I mean that, with all due respect to Vaughn. I just don't. I think that's mainly an insurance policy is really what I'm trying to say. I don't think that is their go-to solution. I think that is their emergency situation. And I don't think they're going to want to let it get to that. But again, we'll see what happens. Oh, wow. Blake says, I need a Dansby and Luke Jackson signing, and all is right in the world. Yeah, look, we're friends with Luke. We're friends with Luke Jackson here at the channel. Luke gave us an interview earlier in the year. Big fans of Luke Jackson. I would tell you this. In my conversations with Luke, I don't think he would be mad if I told you this. In my conversations with Luke, when I asked him, it was essentially, he expressed to me that he wanted to stay. I don't think he's going anywhere. You're talking about a guy who didn't play this year, coming off an injury. Of course, we know that he was hurt this year. But I think that a lot of times you could find him going to another place. I think Luke personally loves it in Atlanta. I would be very surprised if he went anywhere else. I would be very surprised if the Braves have not expressed interest in having him back. I think something's done very soon with Luke Jackson. By the way, you can see his interview and Tyler Matzek's interview and Matt Olson's interview and anybody else pretty much on the channel if you'd like. You can go find those. They're in a playlist, I believe, titled Get to Know Them and titled Interviews as well. That being said, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. So do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We're going to be here for a few more minutes, but I need to check something real quick, because if I'm reading that correctly, that is big news, and I'm going to announce it here if it's true. But I don't know that it's true. Okay, that has not officially been announced, so I'm not going to say a word. But it is, okay, this is according to ESPN. Thank you, Blake. According to ESPN, Deion Sanders is preparing to accept a coaching job at Colorado. This is interesting for you college football fans. I hate to take a pause from baseball conversation, but this is a big deal. This is from Pete Thamel, so you know it's legit. Jackson State coach Deion Sanders has been preparing to make an exit in order to take the head coaching job at Colorado, sources told ESPN. With Jackson State on the cusp of the SWAC title game on Saturday, Sanders and his associates have spent the week making inquiries to both potential members of his on-field staff and support staff at Colorado, pitching them to join him in Boulder. Source told ESPN on Friday night that Sanders' outreach included a call to a prominent player in the NCAA transfer portal, encouraging him to not make a decision because Sanders was heading there to Colorado and wanted to recruit him there. Yeah, so that's interesting. It's not official, but I thought I would make that announcement real quick for you college football fans out there. If somebody could get me a USC score at the moment, that game might be final, but I'd appreciate it if you guys could put that in there for me. Keeping an eye on that. Thank you guys for being active tonight. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, Utah. Yeah, I know Utah was coming back. Is it final, Jake? Is that final? I know I'm like completely interrupting the flow of this live stream, but I don't care. Let me know if that's final or what time of the game it's in. Yeah, I really need to know that. Under 7. Okay. Yeah, I was watching that game before this, if you can't tell. We'll see what happens for sure. Let's see. Eric Paz, I appreciate you tuning in, buddy. You got the wrong channel. He says, "Let's go Mets, let's go Mets." That I can't support that, but I appreciate you watching. Captain Spartan. Oh, thank you. Utah 34, USC 24. I got to tell you, I'm rooting for Utah. So here's the deal, right? Utah, I don't have really an argument in this game. I just enjoy chaos. And if Ohio State was to make it into the top 4, that would be chaos. So I really just root for chaos. Captain Spartan, you picked me out, man. Yes, I am a Florida State fan. And say what you want about us Florida State people. We had a pretty good year this year, and I'm okay with that. We did all right. I'm just happy that we're back in the mix to some degree. We went 9-3 this year. We're going to a bowl game. I've been a Florida State lifelong. I got to interview Bobby Bowden a few years ago. That being said, yeah, we've completely flipped this conversation to college football. So, look, I'll be at the SEC Championship tomorrow, by the way. If anybody's going to be there, I will be there for work, but I will be there. Of course, University of Georgia will be taking on LSU, and that's going to be a lot of fun for me to be at. If you're there, say hello. If you see me, I may be running around at some point. But if you're not there, oh well. If your team's in the game, I'm rooting for them. If they're not in the game, oh well. But yeah, to answer your question, Captain Spartan, I am a Florida State fan for sure. There is a signed full-size helmet of Bobby Bowden in the other room. Grew up that. At this point in my college football viewership, I'm more of just a college football fan. The past few years have not been friendly to us Florida State people, so I really just enjoyed, not to say hating on other teams necessarily, but I've enjoyed the chaos. That's kind of how I watch college football. But I am an avid college football fan just in general. I like, frankly, I respect Nick Saban. I like what Dabo Swinney does at Clemson. What Georgia did last year was interesting for sure. But I like college football in general. But yeah, if there's a team I root for, it's Florida State. And I think Jake Hobby brings up a good point. He says he was a Florida State fan last week. Anyone but Florida. Yeah, for sure. Maverick, thank you again. He says Utah 41-24, USC now. Yeah, keep me updated. I appreciate that. Captain Spartan says, "Are you a Chiefs fan too? Seems like you love the chop." Now it's a get to know me fest. Okay. So, no, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I am a Falcons fan. I actually bought a Mike Vick signed helmet this morning. That being said, Patrick Mahomes has been my fantasy football quarterback 3 years going now, and I have not lost yet. So we're Patrick Mahomes fans here at On Deck for sure. They have won me quite the sum of money in the past few years. That being said, yeah, I mean, I love the chop, obviously. Chiefs, all withstanding, I'm a fan of the chop, but yeah, for sure. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to go catch the tail end of this USC game, and I'm going to get ready for the SEC Championship tomorrow. I got a very busy day tomorrow, a very long day tomorrow as well, and it's getting late. So that being said, we're going to head out of here. Again, if you're at the SEC Championship tomorrow in Atlanta, I will be there. If you see me, make sure to say hello. If not, no big deal. I won't take it personal, but would enjoy seeing you as well. That being said, guys, do me a favor on your way out. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you know every time we go live, every time we drop a video, all that good stuff. Also, tell a friend about the channel. Of course, right now, not a ton to talk about outside of, deGrom to the Rangers and different deals happening. Chris Martin, I believe, signed to the Red Sox today, earlier as well. But there's a lot going on in Major League Baseball over the next few weeks. Make no mistake. Tell your friends about the channel. We will update you on what the Braves are doing especially. And if there's any big deals, kind of like today, Jacob deGrom was a big deal that somewhat concerns the Braves. There's a lot of intrigue around a certain player. Justin Verlander, to name one. Carlos Rodon, to name another. Dansby Swanson, obviously, if he was to go somewhere else. We're going to do a video on those. So make sure to tell your friends about the channel. And, of course, please make sure to stay tuned with everything we have going on here. I do appreciate you guys watching tonight. I appreciate you guys staying up late. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to hop out of here and see you next time right here at On Deck.